Hello, I'm constitutional attorney Catherine Henry. Today I'm going to talk to you about abortion and the Constitution. One of the most basic concepts that we need to start with is that God is ingrained into the very fabric of our state and federal governments through our state and federal constitutions, through the Declaration of Independence. Now, for those people who say, well, that First Amendment says there's a separation of church and state, those individuals don't know how to read the Constitution. Those words do not appear anywhere in there. In fact, let's look at the preamble of the United States Constitution. That preamble says that we, the people of the United States, in order to, among other things, establish justice and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Blessings. Where do blessings come from? They come from our Heavenly Father. We can also look to here in the state of Michigan. We spelled it out a little bit more clearly. Our preamble to the Michigan State Constitution says, "We, the people of the state of Michigan, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of freedom and earnestly desiring to secure these blessings undiminished to ourselves and our posterity, do hereby ordain and establish this Constitution." But then we can look back at the United States Constitution, and we can see that the First Amendment, the language that's actually in the Constitution, doesn't say anything about separation of church and state. What it does say is that Congress shall make no law prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So what does that mean? Well, first, let's also see that here in the state of Michigan, our Michigan Constitution says that every person shall be at liberty to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience. So again, the underlying truth is clear. God gave us our blessings of liberty. God gave us our freedoms. The government did not. Our government, in fact, as it says in the Declaration of Independence, our government is instituted among men to protect our blessings of liberty. But underneath it all, we have an undeniable truth that God is ingrained into the very fabric of our state and federal governments. So now let us look then at Jeremiah 1:5. It says there that before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. The existence of the human being before they are born out into the world is alluded to and discussed in that very verse. You also have people then that try to look at Genesis as saying, well, see, it's not until you breathe your first breath, such as Adam did, that's when life begins. Well, of course, that is how it worked for Adam. But if you look at after how God created Adam and then God created Eve, he told them to be fruitful and multiply in Genesis 1:28. And then in Genesis 2:24, we are told that therefore man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This is the DNA of the male joining with the DNA of the female to become a new and wholly unique human being. God didn't say, well, here's the mold for baby boys, and here's the mold for baby girls. Now take 3 pounds of dirt and 6 cups of water. When you get it formed into what you want, then you just breathe into its nostrils and it'll become alive. Luckily, there are some great Christian leaders in the world that put out explanations just like that. I can't take the credit for that one. But even if you look at universities that are worldly renowned, right? Like Princeton University, you can see that at the moment the sperm cell of the human male meets the ovum of the female, and the union results in a fertilized ovum, a zygote, a new life has begun. Yes, even in a liberal arts university, That is very clearly stated, that a new life has begun as soon as the egg is fertilized. They continue by explaining that the term embryo covers the several stages of early development from conception to the 9th or 10th week of life. So life begins at fertilization with the embryo's conception. In fact, that is the title of the article that you can find at Princeton University. You can also look to the NCBI. Well, what is that other than a bunch of acronyms and initials? The NCBI is the National Center for Biotechnology Information, which is part of the United States National Library of Medicine, which is a branch of the National Institute for Health, part of our U.S. government. And on there, you can find information about embryonic human persons, talking about the embryo that has the same nature as a human being that we know outside of the womb, has the same kind of, it's the same kind of entity from fertilization, conception, onward. The only difference there is a degree of maturation, not in kind, but just in the stage of maturity, between any stage from the embryo to a fetus, to an infant, to a toddler, a teenager, and an adult. So again, you can look at the Bible to find the answer on that. You can look at world-renowned universities like Princeton University. You can even look at our government documents and research institutions to understand that. But most importantly, you need to remember that God himself is ingrained into the very fabric of our state and federal government, and we must look to him for the answers on when life begins. So how can we round out that discussion? What is one last thing that we need to remember? Well, here in the state of Michigan, our state constitution, Article 8, Section 1, says that religion, morality, and knowledge are necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind. So again, just another reminder, you cannot leave religion and morality and toss it out the window and think you can run government in some other fashion. No, everything that the government does, everything that the government allows needs to be run through that filter of our religion, of our belief in God, and of morality as the basis of our entire contract to live together in a society, our U.S. and Michigan constitutions. So then we really need to look at the topic of murder. Exodus 20:13 tells us, "You shall not murder." That's, of course, found in the Ten Commandments. You can then look to the Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution, which clearly says that cruel and unusual punishments shall not be inflicted. We also have something like that in the Michigan Constitution, Article 1, Section 16, that says cruel or unusual punishment shall not be inflicted. And so what is cruel and unusual punishment? Well, clearly we can't be talking about the death of an unborn child. Well, let's talk about the matter of death. Article 4, Section 47 of our Michigan State Constitution spells out that no law shall be enacted providing for the penalty of death. Why? Because we value life, even for criminals, even for people who have been duly convicted and given due process of law and found to have done something heinous or horrible. We have no death penalty here in the state of Michigan because we value life, and that is ingrained into our very Constitution, just the same way that the existence of God and of the fact that God gave us our freedom and our liberty to begin with is also ingrained into our Constitution. So we also then must look at Article 4, Section 51 of our state constitution, which tells us that the legislature shall pass suitable laws for the protection and promotion of the public health. Well, what is the most basic concept of health? Well, the fact that you are living. You can't have health if you're not living. So if we're going to promote and protect life and health, we need to start when life starts, which is at conception. So what about the rights of the unborn? How are they being impacted by the way our courts have gone rogue on the abortion issue? Well, We need to look at our U.S. Constitution, the 14th Amendment, Section 1. Nor shall any state deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Likewise, our state constitution, Article 1, Section 2, says that no person shall be denied the equal protection of the laws. Okay, let's pause on that for a minute. Where is the issue then with equal protection? Well, if you are an adult, you are not allowed to be murdered. That is against the law. That is against God's law, but it's also against man's law. You can be prosecuted and will be prosecuted if you murder or take the life of another individual. And yet, an unborn child does not seem to have that same protection under the law, according to the interpretation of our United States Supreme Court. Now, keep in mind, we have state law on the books that does not allow abortion. And we here in the state of Michigan believe in protecting life very clearly. Quite frankly, as does the entire country, which is riddled all throughout our United States Constitution. But for that horrible interpretation of our Constitution from that case a while back with our United States Supreme Court. So then we need to look at the Fifth Amendment of our United States Constitution. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay, so it's not really specified what is meant by the due process standard there, but it's obviously such an important standard that our founders wanted to secure for us and for our liberties that they also, we, the people, made sure that it ended up in the 14th Amendment, Section 1, where it says that nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So the federal government can't do it, and the state governments can't do it. Well, here in the state of Michigan, where we truly value those God-given liberties, and we value life, we made sure to put it in Article 1, Section 17, where it states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. What due process is being afforded to the unborn children that are being murdered through abortion? There is no due process that's available right now because we're all following that erroneous interpretation from the United States Supreme Court all those decades ago. We need to stick with the language of the Constitution itself here in the state of Michigan and in the United States Constitution, and we need to stick to God's law for us and respect that we each as human beings have these basic freedoms and these basic rights, and one of them is the right to life. And so here we cannot deprive even the unborn child from that life without due process of law, a procedure that is currently being stripped away from a particular class of people, the unborn. Well, what do our constitutions say about the unborn, or what do they say about making laws that penalize a particular class of people? Well, you can first look at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3 of our United States Constitution, which says that no bill of attainder shall be passed. Well, if you're anything like me, you probably don't understand what a bill of attainder is, because quite frankly, until I really read it and reread it and reread it, it wasn't until then that it sunk in that I didn't even know what it meant. So in looking that up, and you can look, you should be able to Google a Black's Law Dictionary if you need to. A bill of attainder is where it's a special legislative act that imposes a death sentence on a person without a trial. That fits perfectly with this whole abortion conversation, because by allowing abortion to happen, our government is imposing a death sentence upon those unborn persons without a trial. They don't have a day in court. They don't have any due process of law. Black's Law Dictionary also says that a bill of attainder is a special legislative act prescribing punishment without a trial for a specific person or group. And that is exactly what's happening here, because the entire class of unborn persons are at risk. As long as a mother wants to go and abort the baby, then she is being allowed to do so, and the government is giving the A-OK on that. So there is no trial that's held. There is no due process for that unborn person. They are being deprived of life, certainly of liberty, and never had a chance to have any property, and all without any kind of hearing whatsoever, any kind of day in court, which totally goes the opposite of our whole notion of justice here in the United States. So we also then can look to Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. The reason why we're going to do this is because there too it says, no state shall pass any bill of attainder. So if we look at that Article 1, Section 9, Clause 3 that we just read a moment ago, no bill of attainder shall be passed in general with the whole country, right? It was so important to our founders that they then put it in the very next section, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, that no state shall pass any bill of attainder. Why? Because you shouldn't be imposing a death sentence on someone without a trial. In fact, you shouldn't be imposing or prescribing any punishment without a trial for any specific person or group of people. That goes contrary to every notion that we have about the concept of justice. So we can also see in our state constitution, Article 1, Section 10 says that no bill of attainder shall be enacted. Again, it was important to our founders to put it in there twice in the United States Constitution, and likewise important to our founders here in the state of Michigan to protect that right in our state constitution. So what does all of this mean? Well, we have in the United States Constitution, Article 6, Clause 2, that this Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything or the laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So the Constitution is the law of the land here. It's the law of the land that is built around the foundational concepts of our belief in God and how God is the one who gave us our liberties and our freedoms, and government is instituted for the sole purpose of protecting those very liberties, including those of the unborn. And in fact, it is so important to recognize that the Constitution is made for that purpose and that the Constitution supersedes anything else that the government tries to do. That we then must look at Article 6, Clause 3, which says that the senators and representatives and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. So the framers knew how very important it was to not only tell us in that first part of Article 6 that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and everyone is bound by it, but then they go further and say, every single person who's going to be a government official in the state level or federal level has to take an oath to support and defend that very Constitution. In fact, here in the state of Michigan, Article 11, Section 1 says that all officers, legislative, executive, and judicial, before entering upon the duties of the respective offices, shall take and subscribe the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state. What's more is that we throughout the years felt so strongly about this oath that in MCL, or one of our state statutes, MCL 15.151, it says that if you are even a mere representative or employee of the government, not necessarily an appointed or elected official, you must take the same oath of office that is required under Article 11, Section 1 of our state constitution. every single government employee has to uphold the law of the land. Every single government employee, whether they like it or not. It's not a choice. It's not about, this is a matter of opinion. These are facts. These are truths. God created us. God gave us all of our liberty. And we broke free from the Crown of England to declare our independence, to follow that up with a constitution that protects our God-given liberties. And it is ingrained over and over again in our state and federal constitutions how God is central to everything that we have today. How our government is supposed to secure those God-given liberties at its very core of its purpose. How each of those liberties should never be stripped away from us without any kind of due process of law. Because we are owed that right to life, liberty, or property in the sense that God gave it to us and the government can't just take it away. And in fact, we value life so much that a bill of attainder and death penalty itself and all those other provisions are built right into the Constitution to protect our right to life. So with that being said, I hope that you've been able to gain a better understanding of how life is so very important from a constitutional perspective, not only here in the United States, but specifically here in the state of Michigan. This video has been prepared in support of the Stanton Detroit affiliate, which is out there doing great work to try to support women and provide alternatives to abortion. They take women to and from doctor's appointments and connect women with other organizations that can help them get the resources that they need. Their current push right now is to raise money so that they can remodel their building that they purchased last year, and they'd like to be able to open a full medical clinic so that people can receive services there that they need. So please help this organization. Donate to them. You can even donate construction supplies. Do whatever you can to support the Stanton Detroit affiliate because they are out there trying to save lives, one unplanned pregnancy at a time.